Head over to zxspectrum.shop to buy brand new add-ons for your ZX Spectrum. Lots of different products are available, for example. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello, guten Abend, goedenavond. Okay, I'm turning the music a bit down so we can start with a new ByteDelight weekly show. Welcome. Got a couple of topics to discuss with you guys. Let's see who's online at this moment. Where is that screen? I think here it is, yes. Yes, there is. Oh, a lot of people are here. Let's see, Frank, goedenavond. Jan, good evening, goedenavond. Thomas, guten Abend. Let's see who else is here. Stuart, Michiel, and Peter. Good evening, guys. And welcome to another show. I was messing a bit with my new keypad, which I'm trying to use as a macro keyboard, but we'll come to that in a second and explain all of what I'm trying to do here. It's a coincidence that in the back you can hear an AY tune of music from Jean-Michel Jarre, which I like a lot, but anyway, that's a coincidence. Because it's just another long video I found on YouTube with lots of ZX Spectrum music. So let's kick off the show! And we're back. Alright. So, as always, if there's anything wrong with the music or audio or anything, then please let me know. Johan, goedenavond. Alright. Okay, let's see what I'm going to start with. No snacks tonight, because I had a lot of snacks today. I had way too much, even during last week, because I wasn't feeling too well. When I don't feel too well, I tend to eat more, because I think it compensates the lack of energy. But it's of course ridiculous, and when you don't feel well, sometimes I don't go outside enough, so I didn't have much exercise. So anyway, that was a bad week. But I have ordered the stroopwafels I was talking about last week, and as I said, I had too much today because I had this pack lying next to me. These are real stroopwafels, the big ones. But don't be afraid, I'm not going to send that over to you guys when you order some stuff, because I don't want you to get problems with your health or something. Anyway, so the cookies are ordered, and fun thing was that when I was ordering them, I got a real nice screen. I actually have to say, when I was trying to find the best option for the cookies, I got this. Look at it, look. I get this cookie warning screen. So let's see, it's a cookie warning, and you have to say accept cookies, which I think is really cool. Anyway, I know it's a bad joke, but I know. Anyway, yeah, I always block them as well, but I visited this website for the first time, and I saw the cookie warning, and I just thought it was very funny, because I was looking for cookies, but not the digital ones. I hate cookie warnings. Actually, nowadays you have websites that give you a full screen list of all options you have to enable or disable, and then you have to say if you accept the cookies or not. And I don't know why websites would do that, because I tend to just leave the website if I get such a screen. I really hate. It's like, for example, when you get in a shop and someone jumps in front of you and says, before you enter the shop, you have to agree with this and this and this and this. What would you do? So anyway, there are a lot of websites that really ask you all these things, and it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. I cannot think of why people would do that, because it doesn't have to do anything with privacy settings or whatever. Just say you're going to save cookies anyway, and I can accept it or not. I can leave the website if I want to or not. I personally don't mind cookies, but it's my problem, maybe. It's my opinion. If people want to know something from you, they can find it out in any way they like. It's not my problem. Call me ignorant, but I don't make a problem of that. Anyway, okay, some other things that kept me a bit busy this week. Not that much, but I thought it was exciting, so I want to share it with you. It was this news about new SSDs, and as you may know, I really like new PC stuff. Here, another cookie warning. Anyway, I really like PC stuff, and Crucial just introduced the new BX500 series of SSDs, and the prices really are dropping a lot, because a couple of months ago you had to pay about $80 or $90 euro for a 240 gig SSD, and this is just a SATA SSD, so no M.2 or something, but just a standard SSD, which will fit in any PC from this moment. Whereas M.2 SSDs don't fit in any PC. Anyway, now you have 480 gigabytes, so almost half a terabyte of SSD power for that same amount. So the price have about halved with the introduction of these new SSDs from Crucial, which is really a good thing, because I still have a couple of PCs here which have a hard drive for storage of large files, for example video files, in my workstation here, and now I can just buy one or two of these large volume SSDs, which are really cheap, and those are much faster, of course, than using a hard drive if that it's needed. If it's not needed, you can just buy a hard drive, of course. Anyway, let's see. Maybe that doesn't interest you, but if you like computers like me, and you do, because otherwise you wouldn't be here, then maybe you like SSDs. So if you don't have an SSD in your desktop or a laptop, there's no reason why you shouldn't, because it makes your computer a lot more responsive and really more fast. Even computers from 8 or 10 years ago or something. Anyway, okay, good evening, Frank. We'll see you later. Right, let's see. Some other things that I'm working on is, for example, this. I have to move a bit to the side. Oh, why I'm still leaving that screen on? Man, I'm bad at this. All right, I'm crafting a new solar fume extractor, and I'm using a couple of large 12 centimeter PC fans for that, and this actually air flow tube, which is used in the professional systems, but I'm going to use this because I don't have that much space and I really want to have the air go to one side. The only problem, of course, is this big enough to handle all the air that's sucked in here, and of course it depends a bit on how fast I will have them spin. So I can just put them on 12 volts, but I can also put them on 9 volts or 15 volts, whatever I want. They can handle 15 volts without any problem. And at the end, on one side, I'm going to install some filters to try to filter out most of the soldering fumes, which are bad for your health. But most important is that it's not going into my face when I'm using the soldering iron. And that's not happening that much right now, but I think it can always be better, and this solution is bigger, but I think it's a bit better because I can finally try to filter out the bad things. And I'm going to use a G3 filter, if I'm not mistaken, that's the name. Filter, which is also used in your kitchen airflow thingy. But I'm not sure if these G3 filters will filter out any of the fumes, because the fumes may be too small, the particles may be too small to be filtered by this filter. Anyway, we'll find out if that will work a bit later on. I'm just going to build this setup, and I already tested if the air movement is enough with 2 or 3 of these fans, and I think it's enough. So it will continuously suck all the air at my soldering station towards one side, and I already tested that. If I'm doing it correctly, then it will help me stay healthy. Anyway, back for to next thing. I was thinking of trying to find a small keypad, a keyboard, or something which you can use for setting up macros, and I ended up with buying this very cheap €3 keypad from, for example, AliExpress, and I don't think the 7 key is working, so I have to open it up and see why not. And I'm trying to use that for macros, and it partially works because there is a tool called HID Macros, HID Macros, which actually you can record key presses from a specific USB device. So I set HID Macros to only record key presses from this device, and then you can trigger any event you want. And I'm a bit experimenting with that because it's not yet finished. The thing I'm trying to use it for example, is starting Outlook and Chrome, because my mechanical keyboard from Gigabyte doesn't have separate keys for those features. And that works, so I can just push a button and it will pop up. That's not a problem. But the next thing I'm trying to do is use the other keys for example, controlling specific actions in OBS, what I'm using right now. And that doesn't work yet, because the only thing I can do is I can see a key press. That's not a problem, but I cannot send, for example, a key combination to OBS. I can only send a sequence of keys that are pressed, and OBS needs key combinations, and that's a thing I'm trying to figure out. There must be a solution for it. I cannot think any other way. Anyway, that must work. Otherwise, I just have to disable this keyboard when I'm not using OBS. Because if I'm, for example, using OBS and I say key 8 is for, you can see the key 8 is now for running the intro. I put some labels on it. Running the intro of the ByteDelight Weekly Show. It will if you press this and you, for example, press the same 8 on my numeric part of my mechanical keyboard, it will also run that intro. So it's not working as it should at this moment. So I have to find out how it works. And also I want to use this for the other keys that are left for some features I use in DaVinci Resolve in the video editing suite. It's a great package, by the way. If you haven't used video editing software much, or like me, you have to move away from Movie Maker, which is for some reason is removed from Windows some time ago. I really don't know why, because it was a Qt suite which worked greatly. So anyway, I had to find a replacement for that. And I came out at the end. I came out with DaVinci Resolve, and the only issue with DaVinci Resolve is you need a video graphics card with CUDA cores, and if you don't have one, you cannot even start the DaVinci Resolve. So you need a video card with that, and you can, for example, use the cheapest NVIDIA GT1 1030, for example, which is only €40, €50 something. So that's not a big problem, and it's a really a great pack of software, because you can do all kinds of cool things. But you need a fast PC if you want to do a lot of effects. And for example, one of the cool things with this software is that you can track movement of an object. So you can pinpoint an object on screen in the software, and if you want to, you can keep the screen centered at that object. If you, for example, there are several of those advanced features. Right. Peter, I've tried to use a bathroom fan. It's a cylinder fan, you know what I mean? I think we're talking about the same. But the problem with that is it's really noisy. All of those really make a lot of noise, because they really push a lot of air, much more than these PC fans do. So that's true. It's a lot more powerful, but it makes a lot more noise, and I don't like that. I want it to be quiet enough that I can concentrate on the work and not get headache or have some buzz in my head at the end of the day, which sometimes I do when I'm focusing too much or have a lot of noise in the back. And sometimes it's my own fault when I'm playing too much music, and very loud, of course. For example, I was playing the episode of State of Trance today, where Cosmic Gate was took the first hour because Armin van Buuren was on holiday, and they had a couple of nice tracks, so the music was very loud, and most probably I will have problems with that at the end of the day. Anyway, talking about music and speakers, I still have to do some things here with my speakers. I can show you what I'm trying to reach. The speakers at the moment are attached to the ceiling, because then I cannot screw inside the walls here from the dormers. So it's really not a good solution, because the music is coming down, and it's not a big problem when you're sitting here, but when you're moving in the room here, the sound, the volume really goes down quickly, and it's not a good, it's not the best way of hearing the music. So what I want to do is I want to lower the speakers so it's at the same level as my ears are, which they should be. And I think I'm going to do that by just attaching the speakers to the ceiling with some bar or something. I have some ideas for that, so that will be a great solution. Yes, by the way, Peter, you're totally right. If you're talking about DaVinci Resolve, DaVinci Resolve is free, which is really strange when you see the power of that package and compare it to Adobe Premiere, for example, which isn't free. DaVinci Resolve is free, and I think they do that because they earn their money by selling video editing hardware instead of the software. And the software is just a product that people need to use, and if they like the software and maybe they come in a setting for work that they need to use that to do that professionally, then maybe they want to buy hardware from the same company. Anyway, that's about the music and the keypads and the macros and that sort of things. Some other things I was doing, I uploaded a video about how I test chips. For example, this week I was testing about 100 AY chips, AY38912, you know, the sound chips of the ZX Spectrum 128K models. And I was doing that on a ZX-AY interface and just pulling them out one by one when they were tested. And of course that can be done more easy by using a SIF socket, but the problem with a SIF socket is you have to, I think you have to solder it onto the PCB, because I ordered a couple today to try it out and never soldered them myself. Of course they're in Apron programmers and that sort of thing, but I didn't have one here that I could use for that purpose. So I ordered a couple, and I think I have to solder them onto the board. And usually I used just an interface from the shelf, which I'm selling, and after testing it, just put it back because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just tested properly after that. So when I'm going to solder a SIF socket on it, I just have to keep it for testing purposes. And maybe I can use the SIF socket inside an IC socket and put it in the PCB. Maybe that's a solution. I'm not sure. So without soldering the SIF socket itself. After test that, and I ordered the SIF sockets. They were only €1 each. They're really cheap from China, and I think it will even speed up even the testing work even more. The thing is, these sound chips, they come from China, and the sources are not always reliable. For example, today from the 100 I had 2 dead chips, and I really have to test all of these chips because I don't want to sell defective chips to customers for example, when they buy an Harlequin kit in the future. They're not yet listed. The 128K models aren't. And all the other chips, all the discrete, the logic chips, for example, this is one example, the HC4040, they're also included in the Harlequin kits. And in the beginning I ordered most of them at eBay because they're a bit cheaper than when ordering from Farnell, for example. But nowadays it really makes sense to order them at Farnell, because even if they are 20-30% more expensive, one thing is that they're carefully packed, and I don't have to spend a lot of time on getting them on the pins straight or something like that, because some Chinese people just throw them in a plastic bag, the chips, and ship them over by in a bubble envelope, and I really surprised me sometimes how people ship that sensitive part. Anyway, so I prefer to order them at Farnell if they're not too expensive. So if they're, for example, 3 or 4 times more expensive than finding them and sourcing them from eBay, then I sometimes get them from eBay. But I had a couple of chips that, for example, I don't know which one it is. I think this one, 74, yeah. For example, this one, there's a note here that I have to test all of these chips, because if I source them from China, then sometimes they don't work. Sometimes a whole batch doesn't work, and maybe I'm still thinking maybe that's caused by X-ray something at customs. I'm not sure, because sometimes I get a batch that completely doesn't work. For example, it's in the back there. with the yellow label. It's that batch behind the box there. It's a batch of 50 41464 chips, RAM chips for the +3 and +2, and all of them except one didn't work. And the supplier wasn't an unreliable supplier or something. So I contacted him, and he was really surprised that they didn't work. So I'm really curious if chips can be damaged by X-ray or something else. I'm not sure. Let's see what's being asked in the chat at the moment. Why are your teletext fast text links in your wrong order? Why are your teletext fast link the code of practice and specifications correctly? Why are your teletext fast text links in the wrong order? I'm really not sure what you're talking about. ZX Guesser, please explain. Oh wait. Oh wait. What's wrong with that? Oh, it's in the wrong. It's in the correct order. When it comes to colors, then, if you're talking about that, I'm not sure. Fast text links. Fast text links. I'm not sure. This is how I handle all comments and all messages, you know. I want to know what people are talking about. Yeah, Thomas, maybe you're right, because maybe they're not using X-ray but using fast frequencies. I'm not sure. It's called X-ray. People always use the term X-ray when they talk about the equipment they use, for example, on airports or something, when you have to when you're checked with all your luggage. So maybe it's not X-ray, but it's some kind of modern, more modern system without getting your stuff radioactive. I'm not sure. I don't know. So if it's not X-ray, then that couldn't do any harm. Can high frequencies destroy chips? I'm not sure. Correct for the specky ROM for TTX? I really don't understand what the guy is talking about. Correct for specky wrong for TTX. Specky? I don't know. Right. Okay, anyway. Maybe it's just that the supplier is supplying defective parts. And talking about defective parts or supplying parts that are not very reliable in any other way, I was contacted by someone last week which told me about something I didn't know about, but I had some thoughts about that it exists, and it's called black topping, I think. It's something that I think is done a lot, really a lot, with equipment that is that we here in Holland or other countries just bring to the recycling places, and there are a lot in Holland, hundreds I think, where you can drop electronic stuff and garden stuff and that sort of thing. Anyway, I come there once a month, I think, with all the garbage from the work here and more from the barn, and you know, and it seems that people in China get a lot of the electronic equipment and tend to try to get off any component, every component maybe, I'm not sure, to be able to sell again. Especially when they're programmable, for example CPLD chips or microcontrollers or something. And even CPUs and other stuff, and RAM chips, and all stuff that can be reused. And you could say that's a good thing, but the problem is, he showed me the guy sent me a video about how it's done, and it's done in a really ugly way. What they do is they send off the text, the labels, so there's not any date code left, so you cannot see if the parts are actually new or something. And then they put a new label on it, very often the labels are not the exact specification of the chip itself. For example, you showed me a table with Z80 types and the black-topped Z80s, which really aren't the same. So, for example, it could be a Z80 Animals type, an old one, that is relabeled with a CMOS version of a Z80 at 20 megahertz. And when testing, most of those chips doesn't even get to 8 megahertz, for example. And they're old, so they're not new. Maybe they're 30 or 40 years old. Who knows? You can tell. So that's done a lot. And if I look, for example, at the AY chips here, it's a bit stucky because it's way too full. It seems I have the feeling that indeed you can see that these chips are being sanded. So I'm doubting that if the chips are new or that they're maybe black-topped and old chips pulled from boards, because you can see they're not soldered. I think you can see maybe they have some way of removing all the solder from the pins and making them look new. I don't know. But anyway, these chips are sold as new, and it could be that they're just old chips, and there's no way of telling. That's a problem. There's no way of telling, except for people who test batches of these chips and find out that they're actually not the chips that are labeled at. So that's a really bad thing. Let's see. Yeah. SID chips, yeah. Well, if you source SID chips and they're only €1 each, they of course they can be proper SID chips. But anyway, the thing is that the guy who tipped me about that way of doing handling with the potential old chips that are sold as new, he said to me that sometimes they label them as 20 megahertz chips to get more money out of them. But even then, for example, the Z80 chips are really cheap from China. And yeah, okay, I'm not sure if these are new. I really don't have any idea, because they look new. I test all of them because they're from China and I need to test them to make sure they work. And these are all labeled as 20 megahertz, so maybe these are old chips. I don't know. I really don't know. There's no way of telling. They look a bit scratched, so maybe these are old chips. I don't know. I really don't know. But they work. They don't get hot, and I never had a problem with them. But I really hate the thought of that I can make sure that these chips are new. And you know, should I find more reliable suppliers that can make sure that these chips are new, and I bet I will pay 5 times more than I'm paying for these chips at the moment, or should I just leave it and just test the chips and see what happens? Because well, if the chips work, I don't know why they would stop working in a couple of years, because even if they're used, some chips just keep working. There's not really a problem with them, I think. Only EULA chips which get hot, of course. But these chips don't get hot. I don't know. It's messing in with my head at the moment. I really don't like what I heard, and I don't know what to do with it at this moment, to be honest. I must say, I even had the feeling, and maybe I said it before. Sometimes I have the feeling that some Chinese people have found a way of using some generic microcontroller chip in some kind of package, 20 pin, 24 pin, 28 pin, 32 pin, doesn't matter, 40 pin for example, and then they can program it to do anything they like. They can program to act as a Z80, they can program to act as a logic chip, or a ZXAY, a sound chip for example, which is harder to do of course because of all the analog parts in that. But sometimes I think that they found a way to mimic the other chips, because sometimes I can't believe that all of these chips are still so widely available, which isn't entirely true because, for example, last week I ordered a batch of WD1772 chips, floppy controller chips, and the order was cancelled because the seller seemed to run out of stock. So I found another guy who sold them, and I ordered them there. So maybe some parts are really getting hard to get, and for example, these floppy controllers are really getting hard to source nowadays. Of course, you can still get them if you pay €30 each, but it's really a ridiculous amount for a floppy controller. So either I pay less than €6 or €7 for each, or I just have to quit producing floppy disk interfaces. So we'll see about that. I'm not going to buy a large lot of them when I find cheap ones, because I don't sell many of those. I just need them when I just need a stock of about 10 of these floppy controllers, for example. So I have a small stock which can take, for example, 4 months or 6 months to deplete before I have to order new ones. Anyway, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I know FPGAs, that's not a problem, but some logic chips can just be done with CPLD, of course. Not FPGA is not really necessary, and I don't think you can do a CPU in an FPGA. I think you need a microcontroller for that. I'm not sure, or can you do that in FPGA? I don't know. There's a difference between an FPGA and a microcontroller, isn't there? Okay, some things I still have to learn a lot. I started doing some AVR lessons last month, and I still need to do a lot of them because I want to dive into microcontrollers and learn how to develop new interfaces with microcontrollers in the future. Until now, most of the stuff with ZX Spectrums, most interfaces contained a CPLD or just some logic chips for an address decoder, for example, and not much more, and of course a ROM and that sort of thing, and some memory. But it's changing now. So if you want to do more complex stuff like interfacing other equipment like USB equipment, or say something. For example, I was talking about the LED RGB LED interfaces. You can do it an easy way, like we ZX Spectrum people know. Just control some simple 8-bit interfaces, or you can try to communicate at the same way that modern RGB LED drivers do with WPM, for example, PWM, yes. So pulse width modulation. And if you want to do that, you have to create a pulse with a certain length and an interval, and that's not that easy doing directly from the ZX Spectrum. You can do it, but then you have to program timing into a machine code routine, for example, and that's not easy to use for users. People just like people said when I announced the idea on Facebook, people said, I just want to type in some out command and I want to have the RGB LED do some colors, and and that's exactly what I'm thinking. It should be simple for the user, and of course you can deliver some kind of software driver with that package, but it's still too hard to use. I think the interface must be the driver. I don't want the user to load any code or something. I just want them to use the out, or from BASIC. They must be able to use the hardware from BASIC. That's my thought. When you produce something, develop something that for people to experiment with, they must be able to use that from BASIC. That's my idea. Let's see what's being said at the. Oh god, what did I say about microcontrollers? Now I have to read all the stuff that's coming along here. Okay, that's true. It's an FPGA, the next core. Yes, that's true. Okay. Although, doesn't the Uno have a Z80 on the board as well, then? Huh? My controller can have RAM, can it? Anyway, alright. So I thought I was going the good way with digging into AVR, but when I read this I should just dive into FPGAs then maybe. and I really, sometimes I wonder how people have learned so much about programming microcontrollers or FPGAs. I think most of the time, most people, maybe all of them, have learned that for work, for example. They've done some training, programming training or study or something, and they can also use that for their hobbies, of course. I never had training in microcontrollers or FPGAs, so I have to learn that from scratch. I had some other things, but that was all mostly aimed to the development software I used at my work back then. Yeah, I could ask Mark, of course. Sure, it's a good idea to ask Mark. Maybe we should get more in contact, Darren. You're totally right, but it's really a time problem, you know. Yeah, and that's the same way I'm doing it. But the problem is, sometimes I wish I could just do one thing at a time and complete one thing, one project, and then get to the next one. But that's not possible anymore. Nowadays, I have to do. Well, let me just tell you my daily routine. I just announced it to my kids last week when we're having dinner. I was explaining to them how my days go by, and nowadays I have four categories, and I start with all customer contacts, so email, Facebook messages, YouTube messages, sometimes even telephone messages, SMS, and that sort of thing. And I want to prioritize that at top level. So I want to start my day with that and go on with it until everything is cleared. And sometimes it's very hard when I have a backlog, and sometimes it takes 2 days to get through all of the messages that are in the backlog, because sometimes the messages have some questions about hardware I sell, or some people want a lot of hardware. For example, there's a box behind me, a box with the red labels there, which contains a really lot of hardware. Someone ordered even some specific stuff, like refurbished original ZX power supplies and more of that. And some boxes I had to get to the storage for. But anyway, processing the messages is of course most important, because those are my customers, and I have to don't like them to wait more than 1 day, for example. And sometimes it takes 4 or 5 days to respond if I did it wrong. For example, when I've been ill, for example, for a couple of days, or when I've been focusing on other stuff like in development of a new product, or focusing on production, for example, then it can take some more time. And that's what you get when you have way too much on products on the shelves or in your store before actually being able to do all the production in acceptable time. So that's what I need a pick and place machine for. That's the most important. Let's see if I'm missing out of some. I will read it when I'm done with the show, guys, because it's really taking too long. And I even was thinking of trying to keep the show within 1 hour, because some people may think it's too much to have a show of 2 hours. Let me know if you think 2 hours is too long for a weekly show. If you don't think it's too long, then we'll just keep talking. Otherwise, I will hurry up and try to get to the next topic. But I was talking about sometimes it takes too long. But anyway, that's the first thing. That's top priority. So keeping in contact with people who ask questions. I don't want them to wait for over a day. So I try to answer messages at the time they're coming in. But it's sometimes not possible when you're focusing on production, for example. Sometimes if you're doing soldering job, you have to work for 2 hours until it's done. And it's the same when I'm having the pick and place machine. And I think I will, when I'm operating the machine, it's a continuous job. You place the next PCB, you make sure all the parts are ready, prepared. And when a PCB is assembled, within 1 or 2 minutes, you have to get the PCB or the panel out, and you have to put it in the oven. And that continues throughout the day, I think. So my idea is to do 50 or 100 interfaces a day with the pick and place machine and oven in the future, instead of 10 or 20. So, thank you guys. The 2 hours is okay. But it does. I promise I will do more videos throughout the week, which is sometimes hard because it takes a lot of time to edit the video. Anyway, I'm getting back to my daily routine. So the first thing is customer contact. The next thing is, now I have to check because I don't want to say anything wrong, but I just created this routine a week ago, and it really cost me months to work out this routine, because I really have to think a lot of what needs to be prioritized. Okay, so the first one, customer contact. The next one is processing orders, customer orders, because people are waiting. So the third thing is production. So when you process the orders, you sometimes see that some products are man, I'm thinking in Dutch now. Some products are getting out of stock, and I need to produce them again in batches of 10, or 5, or 10, or 20. So first thing is production, and including the production are repairs, and I still have a lot of repairs, and I have to say about something about that as well in a couple of minutes when we come to the next topics. And the fourth thing is development. So I have four categories of work at this moment, and that covers all of the work, I think. And development, of course, has the least, is it English? Yes, least priority, but I have to do it. So if I am just focusing on customer contact and production and processing orders, then I will never have time for development. So I have to find a way of making sure that I still do development, and I'm not only working on selling things. Because if we're only working on selling things, that's you may think, well, that's good. If you can work at 8 hours a day and only selling and producing stuff, and that's a good income, then why not? Well, the problem is that people are the market will be what is it? Saturated, of course. The market will be saturated at some time, and if you not develop new stuff, then you don't have any work in the future, or less work at least. So that's a thing. So I need to continue development, and that's one of the topics for tonight. I'm going to show you what stuff I have in mind for the next years. Johan asked me for that, and some other people. So let's see. All right. Yeah, Thomas, you're right. I could use a colleague, but it's a niche market. So there aren't many people who do this for a living, and there aren't many people who like to do this even when getting paid for a living. And if there are many people that could do this, then I think it will be very hard to find someone I could hire. And even if I would find someone I could hire, then I have to think about what income I would have for each hour, because paying someone will at least cost you 50-60 euro, I think, when doing technical stuff. gross payments, because they will get only 20-25 euro maybe from that, but all other costs like retirement funds and that sort of thing and insurances will cost a lot. So really, I'm not looking for employees through the next 1 or 2 years, maybe later, and never say never, but not at this moment, no, really. Let's see, so that's my routine, and I will stick with that. So it helps me with when I'm starting in the morning, first focus on customer contact, emails, Facebook messages and that sort of thing, and then orders and then production, and that will help me for the next weeks to get a good way of working and not think about it too much, just do it, just doing it. Alright, where was I? Yes, this week's topics, we finally reached that. Yes, I have 2 kids, and well, why are you laughing about it? Because I was laughing because of the smiley of Mark. Well, let me tell you one thing. My son just started high school. And he likes to play a lot of games, and he doesn't have many other interests at this moment. I think it will come when he gets older. But with his level of high school and study later on, maybe he won't make much money with that sort of school. And even if when he's 12 now, when he gets 14 or 15, he could choose either between bringing around papers or working at a McDonald's or something like that, or he could work here. And I will talk with my accountant and see what payment I could give him for that, and what construction is needed to do it legally. And I think he will get a lot more profit here when he works here if he's, well, I don't like to say it, was smart enough to, for example, handle the pick and place machine. But I think anyone can do that because it's when it's installed, I think it's very straightforward to operate it. So I'm not joking about it. I think my kids can really work here, for example, in the holiday season and maybe in the weekends if they like, and if they like to make some money for spending. Because I won't give them everything they want, and really kids want a lot. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's an idea to if we would like it, and he doesn't really care too much about what kind of work he's doing, then this could be an idea, because there are people who really think this is boring work, and I think I can put my hand in the fire if I say you guys don't think this is boring work, because when you like ZX Spectrums like I do, and if you guys like ZX Spectrums, of course, I bet you would like to spend lots of time working with them, and if you get paid for working with your hobbies, then that's the best there is, isn't it? Now, I completely agree with you, Thomas. I was just joking about 2 very common things you can do when you get to the age of 14 or 15. But I really wouldn't suggest that to my son. So anyway, yeah, it's really interesting work, and of course it's not easy to make a living of it, because I'm still not making a living of it. I have to within 2 months now. So I have a lot of work to do here. You can see all the boxes behind me. There's a really lot of work still to do. And I think my biggest issue at this moment is wrapping my head around all the new things I need to do daily, and the focus I need to have. And that's a big problem, because if you have 2 kids, staying in focus throughout the day is really hard. And there, of course, not only kids will distract you, but many other things, like visiting a doctor, or getting some things from a shop or something like that. Or for example, my car broke down again last week, So I went to Toyota yesterday and they told me sensor need to be replaced, costing me €700. Which I think it's very expensive. I'm not sure if it's a correct amount of money for a sensor. Anyway, it's a complicated sensor, so I get it a bit. But you know, a car can break down any moment. It's a 10-year-old car, €12 I think. Yeah, 700, yes. So I hate that because I don't have much money at the bank account at this moment because I'm saving for the pick and place machine, for example. But I will find a way. That's not a problem. And that's what you get. Car breaks down. You have to spend 2 hours just to get a diagnosis of the problem, and then you have to go back for repairs and that sort of thing. You know. And I really hate it because I would really like to just being able to spend 4 or 5 days in 1 week of focusing on this work and making money. And of course having fun. Because really it's not all about making money, otherwise I wouldn't do this show, really. But you know, I have to do this for a living, so I really must be able to make this a success, you know. I hope you guys get what I mean, because it's not that I only think of money, but I'm really trying to think as an entrepreneur and being very serious about this. And it helps with getting new products for you guys. For example, the Spectronet interface, and I wonder if you guys want this one because it just fell on the ground, but it's not assembled yet, so it can't do much harm at this moment. Yeah, but you guys have cool cars, and I think cars from 12 years ago are more complex, although not the most complex, because mine doesn't even have an iPod connection or something. Spectronet. So I think I have all the parts. I think I have to check, but I ordered everything I needed. Oh no! Only you have to wait for the ROM chips in the TSOP package. But I've ordered them from eBay from one seller, which I done. And I was talking to Alistair, I think, today about why Dylan is not producing them the interface himself anymore. But it's not a big issue because I think there's lots of interest in the Spectronet at this moment. And I was thinking about why there wasn't too much interest. What is it? 3, 4, 5 years ago? No, 5 years. Over 5 years ago. Because the first time I actually used a computer ZX Spectrum with a Spectronet was at Spectrum 30 in Cambridge. 7 years ago. No, 6 years ago. 6 years. Yes. And it was developed before that. So I think Dylan got the first one ready in 2011 or something. Which is this version, I think, or maybe this is issue 2. I'm not sure. But I think people are more interested because people have gotten used to the DiffMC interface, for example. So they have gotten the feeling of far faster speeds and more storage space, and they're looking for the next thing, I think. And because they have all these gadgets they can use on the ZX Spectrum. Why not control an Ethernet interface like the Spectronet, of course? Now the problem is first the hardware that wasn't available, so they're coming. I have a box full of components here, and it shouldn't take much time, but I have a reason that it's taking still a couple of weeks. We'll come to that in a second. But the second reason is that the services to use with the Spectronet aren't known very well. Even I didn't know about what you can do with a Spectronet. I still don't know a lot about what you can do with a Spectronet interface. You can play SpecTank, but playing SpecTank with 4 of your own ZX Spectrums on your own with a Raspberry Pi as a server isn't that much fun, you know. It would be a lot better when you can play it with friends or can do online stuff. And Dylan, I found out today that the TNFS utility is a software that Dylan developed himself specifically for Spectronet. So you can run that utility on your Windows or Unix or Apple machine, and you can use your ZX Spectrum with Spectronet to use the features that the utility run on your PC offers. And I think there were a couple of TNFS servers that offered some cool stuff like running games from the server directly, for example, and other stuff. But because I haven't yet used any SpectraNet myself here, I haven't had a chance to experiment with all the features of the SpectraNet. So it's a lot of work. So I still have to wait for the last parts to come in. Then I have to assemble the first one. Then I have to do testing. I have to write a build guide for myself to speed up the production time. Then I have to start some website with information about what you can do with a SpectraNet. For example, like I did with the ZXHD website. Maybe you guys have seen it. I'll just show it here. Oh, why doesn't it work? ZXHD.bytedelight.com. URL is missing from my history. That's strange. Anyway, we'll show it to you. It's not loading. Oh, there it is. Finally. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay, this is a specific page for the ZXHD. It's not new anymore, but it was the latest addition to the page, the instruction video of how to assemble the interface. Some reviews where you can order it from the webshop, of course, compatibility lists and power information, which is cool, by the way. Did you know that I have measured some things about power usage from lots of hardware? So I've saved all the information here. So if you want to know if some combinations will work on ZX Spectrum 48, for example, with a maximum of 1 amperes of power output, then you can find out at this page. Maybe I should create a new page for that in the future. We'll see. What else do I have here? Latest manual version, firmware upgrades, which haven't been since the introduction of the interface. There's a history document, which I think is cool. Anyway, I will do the same page for the SpectraNet when I have the SpectraNet available in the web shop. I think it's important for people to have a landing page where they can find out all of the things about the SpectraNet. I think it's a cool interface. Nice. Is that the Retro Man Cave video about ZX Vega versus ZX Omni? Which show? Because I still have to watch that video. I'm curious a bit what they're talking about there. Okay. We'll watch the video and see what they're saying about it. And I'm watching already so much video there. Man. All right. Okay. We'll see that video. Let's see. Play-Doh trim, yes. Yes, I've seen the message about Play-Doh trim, and I have to read all the replies to that Facebook post, because there was some discussion about SpectraNet as well there. Man, you guys are really chatting a lot. I can't keep up, man. I will try to read it again tomorrow morning with some coffee, like some of you do. All right. The reason that SpectraNet is not yet available is not only because the parts are not in all yet. I think just one part is missing. But anyway, I was talking about my daily routine now, but I also have the bigger plan, which is important. And why? Because if I not take some sequence of steps, then I will never get things done, and people will be very angry and upset and disappointed, and you know. The idea is that I will just go on with the daily ordering and production stuff. That's not a problem, because I won't remove products at this time from the web shop. But I think it's important that I finish all of the repairs, which are still a lot there in that corner. No, that corner there. People are really still waiting for a lot of stuff. For mostly people from Portugal, which I really have to do a lot of repairs for. And all right. Alright, well, Alistair was talking with me about the SpectraNet software, and he shared some updates he created himself, he developed himself with Dylan. And he is thinking of getting all the documentation back and putting it on a website somewhere. So if you're talking about APIs or something else, then yes. And of course, Mark, your MicroRage is also one of the first. I always say one of the first, but man, it's so busy. So there are some people in the chat here who know that I really have to finish the repairs first before doing new stuff like putting new stuff in the web shop. And I have some stuff which I still have to put in the web shop. For example, the posters, the jetpack photos, the new mice, the new Genius mice I have for the KMOS interface. Some things like stereo speaker sets, and I think I have some more things. I have to check. Oh, and lots of other things I want to offer are completed ZX Spectrums, repaired and refurbished, and rare stuff, Disciple disk interfaces, and low-profile keyboards completely refurbished and that sort of thing. Because I have plenty of those stuff, and interface ones and micro drives, and I have really a lot of those stuff laying around. But the problem is, I just don't have the time yet to work on them, even when I'm doing this full time. And again, two of the reasons are, one, that I don't have the pick and place machine in place yet, and the second is that I'm not able to at this moment work as efficiently as I want to, and having a good focus and that sort of thing. And there are several reasons for that. I was talking about the kids, I was talking about other distraction. I really have to change myself. That's the most important thing when you're getting to be an entrepreneur. You have to change yourself of dealing with distractions and stress and lots of things, and still doing all the work and not sitting in a corner weeping, whining, something. So that's the biggest problem with me at the moment. I really have so much things to do. It's hard to not get stressed out and do nothing. Focus, having routines and doing the first things first. So that's why I say the repairs will be finished first before I will offer new stuff and develop new stuff. Talking about developing new stuff, let's get to the next topic. I've been thinking about some new interfaces throughout the last weeks. And one of them was this one. I will show you. Let me share that screen again. Yes, oh, this is the blurred one. If you're using glasses, then you might think you don't have them on. No, it's my button. So yeah, I can zoom in. Let's zoom in a bit. I was just thinking about if I want to create an interface that which allows you to control RGB LED strips. How would I do that? And these LED strips need three separate signals, PWM signals, which drive, I think, 5 volts. Could be 12. I have to check. No, I think it's 5 volt for the RGB strips through these strips. At a certain power level, of course. It depends on how long you make the strip. You can use half a meter, you can use 5 meters, you can use 500 meters. But of course, you have to use a decent power supply. And there are two ways. The way that's being done with the RGB LED drivers is using WPM with MOSFET drivers that allow you to drive large amounts of power at a certain frequency, which enables you to control the brightness of the LEDs, because they glow a bit, of course. And if you use a camera, then you'll see they will flicker, but for the normal human eye, it won't make a difference. So using WPM, that's the way to do it nowadays. But you need a PWM source. You need something that you can create a PWM signal with. for each of the colors, so for RGB separately, and then you need some circuit to drive the LEDs with the MOSFET chips on it. And I found some circuits that you can build, you can develop yourself. So I think I should be able to develop something with the free MOSFET chips on it that control the LEDs itself, LED strips itself. But then still the question is there an easy way of creating a PWM signal? And I think there will be a chip of some kind that enables you to do that. But most of the time, these chips are controlled by a serial programming, serial signal. And for 8-bit computers, you're used to programming things by parallel data, and that's what I'm trying to find out, if there's something like that, or otherwise. My idea would be just to control, let's say, hardwire one of the infrared remote controls for an RGB LED kit, which includes a LED driver and the receiver for the remote and that sort of thing. Because you can buy those kits, and of course you need to know which transmitter, for a transmitter you will use, because I think my interface could then just simulate key presses on the keypad to control the strip, the RGB strips. So that's the easy way, if you can say that. And I think the easy way means that there are some simple parts which you can just do instead of solid state relays. You have some parts nowadays which do make connections in an analog way. I've used one of those parts in a Pro 1 interface, acting like a switch. So it's sort of a switch, but it's an electronic switch, but not like a relay. So that could be an idea. But then I have to check if, for example, different RGB infrared remote controls have the same signal. So, for example, I buy 100 of those remote controls and I create an interface for that, and I find a way of wiring the remote control to the interface. That would be my idea if I want to do it the easy way. So there are two ways, and I'm not sure which one I will use. We'll think of that later on. But I think it's just cool having something like that. And the problem is I have so many projects like that I want to do, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean, because I have a list of stuff I want to develop in the future. These are only part. Oh, what's happening here? These are okay. These are only a couple of things. Many of them already have available. So not that one. These are things I'm still working on. The replacement PSUs. That's another product. It's ready. I just need to produce them. For the K upgrade kit, I removed it from a web shop because there was a problem with those. I need to work on my software to automate my daily ordering process. Let's see what else. And these are already finished and available. Dual floppy drive is available, but of course all of these are links to documents for myself with more information about upgrades of these things, these interfaces. For example, I can tell you that I would like to sell dual floppy disk interfaces with one codec drive and one real floppy drive, for example, because people are interested in that. Then Harlequin kits, well, that's what I was telling you. The 128 model will arrive very soon. Another new product, but it's also waiting for the repairs to finish. Joystick interface, I already made a new one. Some legal stuff I have to check out. KMOS 2017 interface, which is already available. The keypad, I think that's about producing the keypads for the toast rack, which people really like because of the nostalgic feel, because they were only sold with the Spanish Investronica toast racks back then. But was it? I forgot his name. The guy who also made the Chroma and the other interface. On his website he shows everything that's needed to build your own keypad, and I would think of also producing a case in the same way as I do for my other interfaces, but specifically for the keypad. Maybe even with keys, but that's another story. Alright, something else, it's a hobby project. I would really like spending time on this because it really gives me the chance of being creative, is the laser projector on a ZX Spectrum. I really would like to create a projector with two lasers and maybe with two angles. You can really create projections on a screen, and maybe several lasers for RGB colors. But I don't have the time for that. There was this is an old one. It says MBO free, and it was my idea of creating a new interface after the MBO 2 which you can use with a compact flash or an IDE drive, or maybe an SD card with a compact flash adapter or something. But only has the IDE part, the mass storage part of the MBO 2, so not the floppy disk controller. But Jen Kusira from the 8-bit company already is working on the MBO 3 Plus himself, which is great news. So I don't have to work on that project at this moment, but I am in contact with Jen because we may talk about having the MBO 3 Plus produced by the pick and place machine when it arrives. We'll talk about that. I'm still thinking of a multi-phase interface. Oh yeah, there was a discussion about a joystick for the next, but I'm not sure if it's going on. If we're going on with that outsourcing of work. Well, I'm ordering the pick and place machine. A new PC keyboard interface. Well, I was talking about the microcontrollers, and that's what I want to use it for. A simple microcontroller to control a USB keyboard in the future. Let's see. This is about the PostNL. It's about a contract that PostNL want to push me through the throat. That's how we say it in Holland here, so they can stick it in there. QL interfaces. There's a lot of interest in QL interfaces, but I saw last week that Salma Retro is really offering a lot of those. Well, and I can go on. Would you guys like me to go on with the list? Would you guys like me to go on with the list, because it's really a long list. Where did I put it? What did I do? Oh, it's here. Would you guys like me to go on with the list, because I have more of the stuff that I'm thinking of doing in the future. Anyway, lots of new ideas. Lots of ideas. Okay, let's just continue and finish it. What do we have here? Some coupe stuff. I'm not sure what's in there. The Spectrum. Some people ask me to make a Spectrum clone. I'm working on the Turbo Sun Pro clone. I'm working on the Twister board. I still have to finish the Ultimate card for Atari. USB Blue Drive. I want to dig in to see what it is. I have to do some new things on the website and the shop. And things like the discussions about ZX printer belts and that sort of thing is here. Yeah, and specific things for the ZX Spectrum Next are saved in that link. And if I have new ideas, I try to add them to this ByteDelight products index, so I don't lose the ideas, because if I hate something, is that people will say I have an idea, and then they don't do anything with it, and they forgot about it, and they never do anything with it. So this is my way of trying to keep track with ideas. All right. So I really have plenty of ideas, and this is only ZX Spectrum related, as you saw. And I think I can go on with new Spectrum stuff for at least the next 1.5 years. Yeah, well, But of course, as you know, I told before, I also want to create stuff for other machines in the future. We'll see when I reach that. It's really a lot of work of doing all of this already. Let's get back to the show. Okay, Johan asked me specifically what I think about the ZXPAN and Chroma for the ZX81. Well, the problem is, first of all, I've never done much with the ZX81. I have to admit, I actually tried once to loading software from a tape for the ZX81 and I didn't succeed because I didn't know what was happening. And that's my problem. So I try to focus on hardware mainly, and even for the ZX81, as last week I told that I will just now fix the ZX81s and offer them for anyone who's interested. And I repair ZX80s, for example, but I never was interested in the ZX81 or ZX80 for software use, just for collection or repairs and that sort of thing, but not really for software use. It's not my thing, you know. But can I say something about if I think the ZX81 is complete? Well, no, I don't think so. There's a specific group of users that really like the ZX81 and the ZX80, of course. But the ZX81, much more people used the ZX81. And last week I read a lot of people about reactions from some people about the ZX81 that it was their first computer. And I really never thought of that people who used the ZX Spectrum may have started with the ZX81. It just never came into my thoughts that could be the thing. But I think many people have started with the ZX81 and later on got to the ZX Spectrum. So if the ZX81 was their first computer, then of course it's a thing that they grew up with, and then they have lots of good thoughts of course. Even Sir Clive himself thinks the ZX81 is his best invention ever because it only was made of 3 chips and it was a very complete machine for the time back then. Why am I saying this? Because if there is really a huge ZX81 user base, and I don't know actually because I'm not in any ZX81 Facebook group, for example, and I bet there are some, I'm not sure. But if there are some, then and maybe they have a couple of thousand users in, I can imagine that that there's still interest for the same stuff that is developed for the ZX Spectrum, for example, a ZX81 HDMI interface, or with more colors like the Chroma, or for example, an Ethernet interface for the ZX81. Why not? Or think of something else. Well, we have ZXPAN, which is of course able to you can now load software from SD card. You can add colors to your ZX81 and more memory and that sort of thing with the ZXPAN. And I think the setup with the ZX80, the ZXPAN and the Chroma is really a nice setup. But some features that some people may think are missing are Ethernet and HDMI output. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if many people would be interested in that. It's not easy to develop both of those interfaces for the ZX81 because I know how much time and effort it has taken to develop those interfaces for the ZX Spectrum. So the question is really, is there so much interest for those new stuff? I think Paul Farrow was his name, of course. Paul did a great job with the Chroma, and I'm not sure who did the ZXPAN. I think I have spoken with the guy who did ZXPAN because at one time he wasn't offering them, and I'm not sure if they're available at this moment. So I asked him if he was interested in having me produce more of those ZXPAN interfaces, but his only reaction, as far as I remember, was something like, it's a complex interface to assemble and I want to do it myself. And then I think, okay, it's okay. ZXPAN isn't made by Paul Farrow, is it? I don't think so. ZXPAN is made by someone else, I think. not sure. Chroma is made by Paul Farrow from Fruitcake, I think. Anyway. So I'm not sure if ZXPON is still available. I think it's a cool interface. Also has sound these days, I think. If I get lots of requests for new things, then sometimes I think of it and add it to the list. And the list I was showing, by the way, there are some interfaces that really could be combined. For example, a joystick and ZXAY interface. That's one idea. I was almost talking Dutch there. So it's not only the interface that I showed there, but also the things like the ProXL interface, which I'm thinking about, which combines lots of the... Oh, Morris, yeah. So Morris. Lots of the interface I'm producing right now, but then in one large interface, which will look like a disciple disk interface, you can put underneath your ZX Spectrum, and has some optional base you can put in other interfaces. But anyway, it will take a long time before that is done, and I really hope I will get to there in the future, but not sure when. Another thing, for example, is I'm still selling lots of DivMC mini interfaces, but I want to sell the newer version that's based on the Pro 1 interface, but a vertical one, of course. And I'm thinking of selling one without the joystick interface and one DivMC mini with the two joystick ports. I think it's possible to develop it in a small size, because the Pro 1 is small as well, and you don't need the throughput edge connected in at the top. So I think it's possible to do it in a vertical way and make it a budget interface as well, because I'm still selling them at first without case, which makes it a lot cheaper, and it has all the benefits of auto detection and so that sort of thing of the Pro 1. So that's what I'm thinking about. DIY kit for Div IDE. Why would you need a DIY kit? Why would you need a DIY kit of Div IDE? I think these are even available on some Eastern European website. Anyway, let's see. Enough about ideas and about ZX81. Well, I think it's always interesting to develop new hardware for any system, even for systems that there may only be 100 pieces around worldwide or something. Of course, if you would develop an interface for one of those rare machines, they will become expensive, because I'm doing this for a living now, and if no one else would make something like that and I would do it, then I have to count in the time that I spend. So it won't be cheap, but it's possible. It's still possible, but it's not something that gets a big priority because of the other things that needs to be done. Let's see. Okay. So the Divari kit is not available anymore. Okay. Well, I could make it a kit, but I don't think there's much demand for it. If you want a kit, then we may discuss that. Maybe we could discuss that. But the thing is, I like to test the interface myself, but with the Div IDE it's not a big problem, because I can test the gull chips, for example, myself. That's no problem. So contact me if you want to. Let's see. Yes. So I think that's about all to say at this moment for new interfaces. And I don't know if you have any idea what happens in my head when I'm thinking of all these interfaces that I can or should or could or must make in the future, because for one person it's so much work of doing all of this, If I would be a millionaire and I would just do this for fun and not worry about money or something, then it's a completely different discussion. But my main issue in my back of my head is I need to make this a living, and I need to do this within 2 months, and I'm definitely not there yet. So that's the biggest thing that's keeping me stressed and out of sleep, and you know what I mean. So the thing is, I need to prioritize, and it's not that I don't like to discuss what's most interesting to do it at first. Because I know many of you are waiting for +3 PSUs or SpectraNet or something else. But the thing is, I need to prioritize to make it all successful. That's the main goal here, and that's why I need to get. I want to say get rid of the repairs, but that's not the best way to say that, because I have some very special machines here. sorry, Mark. Anyway. I need to process all the repairs as soon as possible now. I really am glad that I found my daily routine now, and things will change throughout the next weeks, days, I think, even. And then when I reach the moment that I can install and start using the pick and place machine, I think. Then I will be at the level of efficiency and income that I need for my family, and that will keep making the idea of ByteDelight doing full time realistic. And that's for me is the most important thing, and I think it's a good thing to end the show with today, because I'm through all my topics of today's ByteDelight weekly show. I think we have lots of cool stuff to come. There's no way of getting bored with the ZX Spectrum for years, if it depends on me. So guys, this will keep me busy for hours, and we'll see you later next week, and maybe in some in between videos throughout the next days. We'll see. I'm visiting the thrift stores a bit more during the last weeks, but it has some reasons, because things like my kids need a new bike, and I like to look there for a new bike or some other stuff for a house. I have to watch that the money is not going out too quickly, so thrift stores are a great place for that. And there's lots of nostalgic stuff I like to find there. So maybe there will become some more thrift videos. I have some footage waiting for editing. So I'm hoping to create a new one in a couple of days. Anyway, guys, so let me continue on repairs from tomorrow morning with coffee, and maybe I'll do some live streams of repairs. You never know, because I like doing that, because I can share what I'm doing with all the machines with you guys live. If you like to watch that, then please join. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We're at 951 subscribers at this moment, I think, which is great. So I hope I'm able to continue with this work for years. So we'll finish this show for this week, and see you later, guys. See you next week. Bye. Head over to zxspectrum.shop to buy brand new add-ons for your ZX Spectrum. Lots of different products are available. For example, the ZX HD HDMI interface, or the FMC Enjoy Pro 1 SD card interface, and lots more. Set a currency preference to British pounds or euro, and check out easily. Also found on our website are links to our Facebook page with weekly updates of all kinds of ongoing projects. And of course, do subscribe to our YouTube channel with lots of reviews and the ByteDelight weekly show episodes.